Hollywood's golden age, the glitz, the glamour, the stars who seemed larger than life. But behind the red carpets and flashing cameras lay chilling secrets, ones that only came to light when it was too late. Many of Hollywood's most beloved icons met tragic, untimely ends, but the question remains, was it just fate, or something far more sinister? Autopsy reports have revealed shocking truths, details that expose industry cover-ups, silent enablers, and a system that pushed these stars past their breaking point. And what's even more disturbing, these deaths weren't isolated incidents. The same patterns keep repeating, even today. What really happened to the biggest stars in entertainment history? Let's uncover the truth. For decades, we've idolized Hollywood's biggest names, the icons who shaped the film industry and built legacies that still last today. But what the industry doesn't want you to know is that many of these stars were caught in a ruthless system. A system that overworked them, controlled them. Natalie Wood, Bruce Lee, Judy Garland. They weren't just celebrities, they were legends. But each of them died too soon, under suspicious circumstances that still leave us with more questions than answers. Some deaths were surrounded by inconsistencies. Others had key details mysteriously missing. And some were so bizarre that, even now, experts can't fully explain what really happened. And here's the most chilling part. Behind every Hollywood legend lies a story of ambition, success, and the heavy cost of fame. Each of these stars captivated the world with their talent, but behind the scenes, they endured relentless pressures, exploitation, and an industry that treated them as disposable. Their deaths, often shrouded in secrecy, contradictions, and suspicious circumstances, paint a chilling picture of Hollywood's dark underbelly. Through their autopsy reports, we uncover shocking details that expose hidden truths about their final days. Were these deaths simply tragic accidents, or were they the result of a system that pushed them past their breaking point? From the cover-ups surrounding Marilyn Monroe to the eerie patterns in Elvis Presley and Judy Garland struggles, one thing remains clear: these tragedies weren't isolated incidents. Hollywood's cycle of manipulation, addiction, and secrecy has persisted for decades, raising an unsettling question: who will be next?
I don't end up with a loveless marriage, do you?
Me, loveless?
That's right. Because if a girl's spending all of her time worrying about the money she doesn't have, how is she going to have any time for being in love? I want you to find happiness and stop having fun.
Number 1. Marilyn Monroe, a death that still raises questions. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a star, she was an era. The most photographed woman of her time, the ultimate blonde bombshell, the icon of beauty and tragedy. But behind that dazzling Hollywood smile, Marilyn's life was far from glamorous. Her story didn't begin in mansions or luxury. It began in foster homes, loneliness, and a desperate need for love. Hollywood gave her fame, but at a terrible price. Studio executives controlled everything: her weight, her image, even her relationships. She longed for stability, but instead, she was forced onto a dangerous cocktail of drugs, stimulants to keep her awake for grueling film shoots and barbiturates to knock her out at night. The same pills that were supposed to keep her functioning became her downfall. On August 5, 1962, Marilyn was found dead in her Los Angeles home. The official cause of death? Barbiturate overdose. Probable suicide. But here's where things get deeply unsettling. Her toxicology report revealed lethal doses of drugs in her system, but no pills in her stomach. If she swallowed them, where were the traces? Theories and industry cover-ups. Many believe Marilyn was silenced because she knew too much. Others suggest she was simply discarded when she was no longer useful. Even today, her death remains one of Hollywood's greatest mysteries. Marilyn Monroe's death was chilling, but what happened to Natalie Wood was even more disturbing.
You better understand something here and now. What we did before, that was something happened. Don't ask me how or why, but it's not going to happen again.
Why not?
Number 2. Natalie Wood, the drowning that doesn't add up. Natalie Wood was Hollywood royalty, a 3-time Oscar nominee, a silver screen darling. But she carried a lifelong fear, one she spoke about repeatedly in interviews. She was terrified of water. So how did she end up drowning off Catalina Island? On November 29, 1981, Natalie was on a yacht with her husband, Robert Wagner, and actor Christopher Walken. Witnesses say she and Wagner were arguing that night. The waves were crashing against the side of the boat. The argument had escalated. And then, silence. By morning, her body was floating bruised and lifeless, in the freezing Pacific waters. Her autopsy revealed fresh bruises, but the case was quickly closed as an accidental drowning. Theories and industry cover-ups. For years, Wagner refused to discuss that night. But in 2011, the case was mysteriously reopened, and Wagner was officially named a person of interest. Even now, no charges have been filed. Natalie Wood's case remains unsolved. But Bruce Lee's death was even stranger, and may be part of a Hollywood curse. Judy Garland and Elvis Presley were both victims of Hollywood's deadly cycle of exploitation. But they weren't the only ones. How many other stars have been lost to this same system?
Oh, don't hit back.
Number 3. Bruce Lee, the Hollywood curse. Bruce Lee was a force of nature, Hollywood's first global martial arts superstar. He wasn't just an actor, he was a philosopher, a revolutionary, a legend. But despite his peak physical condition and seemingly unstoppable energy, his death at just 32 years old stunned the world. The summer of 1973. Hong Kong. Bruce Lee was working on his final film, Enter the Dragon. The heat was unbearable. He had complained of headaches earlier that day. He took a painkiller, laid down to rest, and never woke up. The official cause of death? Cerebral edema, swelling of the brain caused by an allergic reaction to painkillers. But many weren't convinced. Theories and industry cover-ups. Some believe Lee was poisoned by martial arts rivals who resented his success in bringing Eastern fighting styles to the West. Others point to the eerie coincidence that his son Brandon Lee also died mysteriously years later on the set of The Crow, shot by a prop gun that should have been harmless. The whispers of a family curse became impossible to ignore. Bruce Lee's sudden death left the world in shock. But if Hollywood is good at one thing, it's turning tragedy into profit. And no story proves that more than Elvis Presley's 4. Elvis Presley, the King's final days and Hollywood's role in his tragic end. Elvis Presley was more than just the king of rock and roll. He was an era-defining icon. The voice, the moves, the charisma. He changed music forever. But beneath the fame, Elvis was a prisoner of his own success. Graceland, August 16, 1977. The king had become a ghost of himself, collapsed on the bathroom floor. He isn't breathing. Paramedics arrive, but it's too late. The king of rock and roll is gone. The official cause of death was a heart attack, but his autopsy revealed something far more disturbing. Theories and industry cover-ups. Elvis had over 10 different prescription drugs in his system, including morphine, codeine, diazepam, and barbiturates. His personal physician, Dr. Nick Nichopoulos, had prescribed him over 10,000 pills in just his final months. The music industry didn't protect him, they enabled him. Instead of addressing his deteriorating health, they kept him on stage, drugged up, performing for the sake of profit. And here's where it gets even darker. Some believe—
How can I ignore the boy next door? I love him more than—
We're a couple of swells. We stop at the best hotels, but we prefer the country far away from the city smell.
Number 5. Judy Garland, a life controlled and a death fueled by Hollywood's pill culture. Few stars in Hollywood history shine as brightly as Judy Garland. She was the heart of The Wizard of Oz, the voice behind Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and a performer whose talent was unmatched. But behind her innocent, doe-eyed appearance, Judy's life was a nightmare. From the moment she stepped into Hollywood as a child, her life was no longer her own. Imagine being just 10 years old, handed pills by adults who were supposed to take care of you. Pills to wake you up, pills to put you to sleep, pills to keep you thin. Imagine being forced to work 18-hour days, told you're never good enough, never pretty enough, never thin enough. That was Judy's childhood. Theories and industry cover-ups. MGM executives controlled everything: her diet, her sleep, her personal life. When she became too dependent on the pills they gave her, they labeled her as unreliable and cast her aside. By the 1960s, she was broke, struggling, and exhausted. On June 22, 1969, Judy was found dead in her London home. The cause? Barbiturate poisoning, an accidental overdose. Her autopsy report showed no sign of alcohol abuse, no suicidal intent. The truth was far more tragic. Judy didn't mean to die. She had been addicted to these pills for so long that her body finally gave out. Hollywood's role in her death. Imagine spending your entire life being controlled, manipulated, and forced into addiction. Imagine dying alone, in a rented house, from the very drugs Hollywood pushed on you. That was Judy Garland's fate. And the worst part? Hollywood moved on, just as quickly as they discarded her. Judy Garland and Elvis Presley were both victims of Hollywood's cycle of exploitation. But they weren't the only ones. How many other stars have been lost to this same system? Final thoughts. The tragic deaths of Marilyn Monroe, Natalie Wood, Bruce Lee, Elvis Presley, and Judy Garland share one thing in common: Hollywood played a role in their downfall. And the scariest part? This pattern hasn't stopped. We've seen the same eerie circumstances surrounding Heath Ledger, Brittany Murphy, and even modern-day celebrities struggling with mental health and substance abuse. Hollywood's biggest tragedies weren't just accidents. They were the consequences of a system that never cared about the people behind the fame. Hollywood's dark history is still unfolding today. Which celebrity's story shocked you the most? Let's keep this conversation going in the comments. If you found this deep dive into Hollywood's haunting autopsy reports intriguing, share this video with someone who loves true Hollywood scandals and mysteries. And if you want more investigations into the entertainment industry's hidden truths, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.